Why are you here? Despite our completely cold marriage. My husband Steve said he wanted to celebrate my birthday at a fancy restaurant. I suspected he was up to something, and indeed. His mistress was also waiting at the restaurant. I wanted to celebrate your birthday too. This is a birthday present from both me and your husband. The present was a divorce paper. What a tasteless surprise. But in return, I handed something over that would bring Steve and his mistress down. Instead, I present this to you. My final gift to you. Seeing this, the two of them ended up pleading for forgiveness in a pitiful manner. My name is Alyssa. I used to work as an office worker at a corporation, but due to Steve's wishes, I am now a full-time housewife. Steve and I got to know each other as we started at the same company and shared common interests. He was good at talking and sweet-talking. I fell for him and actively pursued a relationship, which led to marriage. Vulnerable to my feelings for him, I tended to comply with his demands from the beginning of our relationship, thinking it would keep our relationship harmonious. Steve often made aggressive demands, taking advantage of my attitude. Highly regarded at his company and on a career track, Steve focused on his work and insisted that I quit my job to become a housewife after we married. But I like my current job, and I've just been entrusted with a project. No matter how hard a woman like Alyssa tries, she can't outperform me, right? It's better for you to support me by taking care of the home now. I thought, is that so? Although I still wanted to continue working, I convinced myself that maybe Steve was right, and ultimately quit my job when we got married. Even after marriage, Steve continued to assert his beliefs. Hey, I was thinking of visiting my parents next holiday. Steve, maybe you could. You know I hate such bothersome stuff. I'm tired from work, so I want time for myself on holidays. You should just go alone since they are your parents. Steve never met my parents again after our wedding greetings and the ceremony. While I occasionally visited my parents, Steve never accompanied me. I rationalized that he was just not good at handling personal relationships. But it still saddened me to see my beloved parents treated dismissively. Our marriage continued like this for 10 years. How was your day? I was just making your favorite dish. I greeted Steve cheerily as he returned from work. However, upon seeing my face, he sighed annoyedly. I'm tired of that. It feels like you're holding it over me. I don't need dinner today. I just came home to sleep, and I have to get up early tomorrow, so leave me alone. He coldly stated and quickly retreated to his room, leaving me staring miserably at his back. I thought, today too, he didn't eat it. Whether it's because he's busy with work or not. Steve often comes home late these days, and I try to make him comfortable at home by cooking his favorite foods daily. However, Steve usually eats out, rarely having the meals I prepare. Still, as a housewife, I continued to cook and waited for his return. I thought, I wonder when we started drifting apart like this. Tears welled up in my eyes as I wrapped the uneaten food and placed it in the refrigerator. Initially, our marriage was going well, but as Steve rose to a managerial position, the stress seemed to increase, and he became less communicative at home. I kept trying to talk to him, but he only got more irritable, making all my efforts futile. I hoped time would heal things, but as days passed, the gap between us deepened. I kept telling myself that his aggression was due to his busy schedule. All I could do was to wait quietly at home, not provoking Steve's temper. However, an incident that trampled on my feelings happened one day. It all started when Steve came home and was in the shower, and our home phone rang. Hello? Hello, is this the director's home? It seems he left his smartphone at the office. The caller sounded like a young woman. Oh, well, thank you for calling. He's currently in the shower, but I'll let him know once he's out. Is that so? Well, then I'll bring it over. I know where he lives. No, that won't be necessary. I'll have him pick it up later, please don't worry. I have time, so it's okay. I'll head over now. Despite being pushy, she ended up bringing Steve's smartphone. Steve, your colleague said she's bringing over a smartphone you forgot. It was a young woman's voice. So, I see. Okay. I told this to Steve as he got out of the shower, and he visibly looked uneasy. About an hour after the call, our doorbell rang. When I answered, I heard the voice of the woman from the phone. I opened the door, and there stood a woman in her early 20s. Nice to meet you. Are you the wife? Is Steve here? With a look that men might like, miniskirt and heavy makeup, she spoke in a coquettish tone as she peeked into our house. I intuitively disliked her vibe. Megan, sorry to trouble you. Steve passed by me to stand in front of the woman he called Megan, exchanging casual conversation as he took the smartphone. However, their overly friendly demeanor made me feel uncomfortable. Sorry for the late hour, I'll be leaving now. See you, Steve. With that, she left. The door slammed shut, leaving only the strong scent of her branded perfume behind. You seem to get along well with your colleague. What's with that all of a sudden? Megan is just a colleague. Yet Megan calls you Steve so casually. Despite being addressed as director over the phone, the woman had deliberately called him Steve in my hearing when she visited. She's just very friendly. She calls everyone by their first names, not just me. Friendly, huh? Ah, so that's why she knew our house. Even though she's never been invited to a boss's home. She came without hesitation, she must have a good memory. What are you trying to say? My probing words finally made my husband Steve snap. I normally don't confront him like this. But I had a woman's intuition that he might have a mistress. I hadn't investigated her yet, but I was sure that Megan from earlier was the one. So I pressed the issue with passion. You always said you were late from work, but could there be another reason? You might think you've kept it hidden from me, but it's obvious. The times when Steve was busy at work and became cold towards me matched up. It could only mean one thing, infidelity. Why don't you just admit it? Shut up, it was just a fling. So, you admit to cheating? I was stressed from work, and when she invited me, I just lost it. It was just dinner, nothing physical. That doesn't count as cheating, does it? Steve finally admitted to cheating after my persistent questioning. But he insisted that it wasn't a physical relationship. However, judging by their demeanor, it couldn't have been just platonic. But at the moment, I had no evidence to pursue it further. So what if I cheated? What are you going to do about it? Divorce? There's no way you, a housewife with a career gap, can find a job if you leave me. You'd struggle financially without me. Steve sneered at me, ignoring his own actions. As he said, I hadn't worked for 10 years. It would likely be tough to find a job if I tried. Knowing this, Steve was confident that I wouldn't dare file for divorce even if he cheated. You rely on me for support, and you have the nerve. There's no reason for you to bash me just because I talked to a younger girl. I've had enough. I ended the conversation, disgusted by Steve's lack of apology. Ha! Maybe you're jealous of a beautiful young woman. I don't know, but a housewife should just quietly obey me. Steve sneered and spat out those words before returning to the living room. I had tried to ignore it to protect my own feelings. But it was clear he was looking down on me. There was no trust left between us. Despite how much I had loved him, this incident cooled my feelings rapidly. I thought, I won't let him get away with this. I'll make sure he apologizes. Secretly, I vowed to take revenge on my husband, Steve. I thought it was time to use a power that Steve didn't know I had. After that, I continued on with my daily routines superficially. Steve's homecomings remained unapologetically late. And the only thing I changed was stopping to cook meals for him. Once when he came home and asked where's dinner, I told him I had no interest in cooking for someone whose return time was unpredictable. He angrily declared he'd never eat my cooking again. As our marriage continued to grow colder, one day, as my birthday approached, Steve surprisingly initiated a conversation. "Alyssa, I've made a reservation for your birthday at a restaurant." It had been years since he'd celebrated my birthday. Wondering what sudden change of wind had prompted this, I didn't press further but thanked him, looking forward to it. I wasn't sure what he was planning. However, from his attitude and demeanor, it was clear he wasn't genuinely interested in celebrating my birthday. I decided it might be wise to prepare something in advance. I planned to deliver a major blow to both Steve and his mistress Megan. On my birthday, Steve truly had made a reservation at the restaurant. It was a high-end establishment often featured in magazines. We were led inside by the staff, and Steve and I headed to our table. However, an unbelievable person was already sitting there. "Why are you here?" "Oh, ma'am, long time no see. I wanted to celebrate your birthday too," I asked Steve. Just like when she had visited our home. There she was with her revealing outfit and heavy makeup. It was Steve's mistress, Megan. "What is this about?" I questioned Steve, who was sitting next to me. But he feigned ignorance and didn't answer. "Oh, come on, sit down. You'll understand everything once you see this," Megan said, thrusting a piece of paper in front of me. "This is happy birthday from me and Steve." It was a divorce form, already signed in the husband's section by Steve. "I'm tired of our life together. I want a divorce." What a tasteless surprise. "You went through the trouble of reserving a restaurant. You could have just handed me the divorce papers normally. But you chose to mock me to the end, didn't you?" "Oh, come on, we just wanted to have a nice meal and then part ways cleanly." Megan smirked malevolently, watching my reaction. This distasteful setup was likely her idea. It's like a little joke, isn't it? Were you that shocked? Did you really think I'd celebrate your birthday for real? I'm not so naive. I suspected you were up to something. But I didn't expect such an incomprehensible surprise. "Oh, are you making excuses now?" "That's right, I lost. I'll give you the boring man who enjoys ridiculing others with his mistress. I'll submit this myself." I picked up the divorce form from the table. "Instead, I'm giving you this as a present. My final gift to you. Read it carefully." I placed a letter I had prepared in advance on the table and turned to leave the restaurant. Behind me, I could hear their contemptuous laughter. Without taking my meal, I left the restaurant, ignoring the puzzled waiter. With the divorce form in hand, I quickly headed to a specific place. I knew that divorce forms could be submitted 24 hours a day. Fortunately, the office was nearby. I started walking to submit the divorce form immediately. I wanted to sever ties with that man as soon as possible. As I thought, the office was still open. Finally, I would be free from that man. As I was about to enter, I heard someone loudly calling my name. Hey! Alyssa! Wait, please wait. At the entrance of the office, Steve, having noticed me, called out to stop me. He must have rushed here because he was panting heavily. Megan, his mistress, was also there. Her hair a mess compared to how it looked at the restaurant. Likely because she too had run after me. What do you want? I knew they had chased after me because of the letter I had left. But I asked innocently, pretending not to understand. The divorce was a joke. The affair, all of it, was just a story to get your attention. It was a surprise, you know? We've been in a rut, haven't we? What a desperate excuse. It's true. I was just helping the director with a surprise. Ignoring their frantic explanations, I continued towards the entrance of the city office. They were only changing their tune because they had read that letter. In the letter, I had revealed that the president of a major company crucial to Steve's employer was actually my father. Steve knew that my father ran a company. But because he had not met him since our wedding, and our family name was common, he never realized that the president of the client company was my dad. Knowing the truth, Steve must have turned pale because with my father's influence, firing both of them would be easy. We can still fix this. I want you to come back. Please, I'm begging you. Steve was on his knees in front of the busy city office, not caring who saw. Megan, too, knelt down beside him. Clearly, they were afraid of losing their jobs. Oh, it's too late for that. Sorry to have you make such a pathetic show, but I've already filed the divorce papers. You were about to go into the office building. Stop lying. Sorry to have raised your hopes, but I actually left my bag at the counter. I was just going back to get it. We're already strangers. With that, I showed them my hands, emphasizing that I didn't have my bag. They must have thought they caught up with me before I could file the papers. But I had already submitted the divorce application. So, damn. You'll regret divorcing a husband who didn't cheat. Is that all? Just took a surprise too seriously? Can't you take a joke? Despite their rush to prevent me from filing the divorce papers, their efforts were in vain. And they started to hurl insults in frustration again. Still pretending to be innocent, are you? I've already collected enough evidence to prove your affair. Evidence? Yes. You thought I would tolerate the cheating because I'd struggle financially after a divorce. But I'm not the kind of woman to stay silent after being ridiculed. I had hired a detective agency to monitor them, and indeed, they were frequently meeting in secret. There were photos of them entering a hotel together, cozy and intimate. They could no longer claim there was no physical relationship. No matter how much you deny the affair, I have all the evidence. From now on, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. Look forward to paying a substantial amount in damages. As I smiled and delivered these words, the two were left speechless. No. Don't leave me. I just gave in to temptation. You are the one for me. Then, Steve got up and clung to me, sobbing. Stop it, you're pathetic. Saying things you don't mean just because you don't want to lose your job. You should be with that young girl instead of an old woman like me. Even as I tried to pull away, Steve clung to me, crying loudly. As I wondered what to do, a patrolling police officer approached us, asking what was happening. I explained the situation, and they detained Steve. Why is this happening? Steve was sprawled on the ground, seemingly crying. "It's all your own doing. Goodbye." I left him in the care of the police, bid farewell to Steve, and walked away. Later, through my lawyer, I pursued damages, including slavery under cheating from Steve. With all the evidence of infidelity in place, he reluctantly agreed to pay the compensation. When I told my parents about the divorce and its reasons, they were furious. They never liked Steve much, especially since he had avoided them. My father confronted their company about the lack of employee discipline. The executives, faced with my father's fury, pleaded for him to calm down, promising strict actions against Steve and Megan. Steve was demoted and transferred to a regional office, effectively removed from the corporate fast track. Megan was transferred as well, and their affair became a scandal within the company, leading to their eventual resignation due to the hostile work environment. Rumors say that after resigning, their financial situation was dire. Megan started working nights to support him. But Steve, unable to handle his fall from grace, became unemployed. Eventually, Megan, tired of their constant quarreling, left Steve, who then spiraled into mistrust and isolation, now living on social welfare and remaining indoors. While I felt some pity for how far he had fallen, it was all a result of his own actions, having taken his wife for granted and indulged in his whims. However, I recognize my own faults too. By always yielding to Steve's demands and enduring, I allowed his arrogant behavior to escalate. I am now working as an office worker in my father's company, where I met a single manager with whom I share a respectful and communicative relationship. We plan to marry soon, applying the lessons from my failed marriage with Steve. Seeing my new partner enjoy my cooking every day, I feel confident that this time I will find true happiness with a trustworthy partner.